Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Noel Lorenzana. I'm a CPA and today I have a special guest for you to answer the most important questions that you probably have regarding IRS audits and unfiled tax returns. My guest with me today is Michael Sullivan. He's a former IRS agent and IRS teaching instructor. He's a tax expert on news sites like Newsmax, Fox News, ABC, and many more. Michael, welcome to my channel. It's an honor to have you today. How are you?
Good. How are you doing? It's a pleasure to be here. We discussed before. It's been a long time coming to be on the show. I'm glad I'm here. I love working with you. You put out a great quality product. I love how genuine and authentic you are. You've been doing this work for a long time, so it's actually my honor and with all humility that I'm on your show.
Oh, wow. So kind of you to say that. I really appreciate it. I
Paid
mean,
me.
I love your.
You send me a text and you said to make sure that you were humble and genuine. Is that what you said? I have it right here.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I'll plead the fifth on that, Your Honor.
okay, do that.
Moving into the topic of IRS audits, Michael, can you talk about what is an IRS audit and what might trigger an audit?
Sure. There's a couple things that trigger audits, and IRS has got this down. There's a couple type of audits. You could have a mail correspondence audit where the service center found something wrong and they send you a notice. Where they nail a lot of people is some people supposedly forget to put a W-2 on there or a 1099. IRS catches them. That's called the matching audit. Comes out a
Mm-hmm.
year later and they ask for them to pay the tax at that point. So that's the mismatch program. Then there's the office audit where they're usually Schedule Cs and you got to go into the local office. And then you have the revenue agent. The revenue agent is going to come out to your place or business. It's a more serious audit. Usually the person's a CPA, a skilled person, and at that point in
Mm-hmm.
time, they will go ahead and sit down and they will go through everything. A couple things that you have to know is when you get an audit letter, that doesn't mean IRS has to stop there. It's usually a
Mm-hmm.
front door segue to go into different things. We've just had a recent audit where the agent come in for one, all of a sudden they're looking at 3 years and they're looking for partners and other corporate returns. So that audit letter is just a flashlight to go through the door and start looking up and down. So that begs the question, why does a person get audited? That's the really most important thing that people have to know. IRS
Mm-hmm.
has what's called a DIF process. You and I have discussed this before ourselves. It's called the Discriminatory Index Function System. And IRS has fine-tuned their algorithms. Over the years, they know where the stink is. When as an agent, you look
Yeah.
for stink on cases. So these algorithms point to this. If you were to file your tax return and you're showing $100,000 in income and you take dependents and deductions and exemptions and losses, IRS's algorithm starts locating what they think falls out of the national norms for that. And then flags or numbers pull up. And when your tax return gets over those national standards, IRS says this return looks fruitful. So if you're going to have an
Mm-hmm.
office audit or a field audit, IRS is sending these batches of returns to the local office to look at and to grade. Those people, and Herb Canner of my office used to do this. He then looks at those returns and he either will survey or say good to go. He sends them back to the offices who sent these batches out, the service center. They will then decide how many agents are there, how many hours they will take, and they take the
Mm-hmm.
low-hanging basket and they send these returns back down because they want to go after low-hanging fruit. They don't want to waste there. So your own tax return in IRS's filtering system, not a person
Mm-hmm.
touches these, initially has the audit start to come out to the local office, and that's called the DIF, the DIF score. And nobody knows all the algorithms number, but like you or myself, if you've looked at a lot of returns, you can instantly spot the returns that are going to be audited by IRS. A couple groups that are audited that you know about, you and I discussed this as well, are the people who take a lot of credits. If
Mm-hmm.
you take a lot of credits, IRS has actually PIN numbers of all the people who prepare the return. So they know how many returns you got with credits and losses. And when IRS
Right.
sees an accumulation or a buildup, they can actually audit you or a thing, and they'll come out. So if you're taking a lot of credits on your return, and the big gap of where they absolutely crush people is on the Schedule C LLC up to 250, because they know there's a lot of stink there. People don't
Hmm.
report all their income, and they take expenses that they shouldn't. So IRS, even though you have all these people making large money, those returns are being prepared by professionals. Those are less like a return you done. That's
Hmm.
the likelihood of that audit's going to go down, but they're looking for these people where they know, I call them, in the cheat zones.
Interesting. So, as you mentioned, the first correspondence you might receive from the IRS in an audit might be a letter or a correspondence letter. Uh, so, if a taxpayer receives that, their inclination might be to think, maybe this is something that I could handle myself. Uh, what do you think about that? Are these correspondence audits something that a
Yes,
taxpayer should try to
yes.
handle on their own?
Yeah, here's the bottom line. This is my acid test. This is my acid test. It sounds simple. If you got a pit in your stomach, don't make the call. If you don't have a pit in your stomach, no, it is. I have my YouTube channel. I said, how do you decide whether to hire someone? I ask them, give the stomach test. What's your stomach feeling? And I ask
Yeah.
people this question on a 1 to 10. How sound do you feel of your records? If a person says 8 or above, tell them go in themselves. They don't really need me. Don't need me at all. However,
Hmm.
if you have the pit and you feel your records are up and down, remember this: IRS is only going in to see the first year, but they got the flashlight and they're going to
Hmm.
start looking around. Usually, someone like you or ourselves can cut off the other years so IRS can suppress them. Not all the time, but you can keep IRS looking at other years because you know the defenses that you need to use to keep IRS within the boundary that they need to stay in. So it's all about that. It's about building a rapport, making the client look good. A client can never make themselves look good. Nobody can self-serve themselves during an IRS audit. But I would say of the 100 people that call me, I would recommend 40% of the people represent themselves, because not everybody needs us. I can
Hmm.
determine just by the sound of their voice. And then you have people who can't pay. So then you and I, we give them free advice. Make sure your
Yeah.
records are good, they're organized, keep your appointment on time. What people do not realize is this, and you and I discuss this a lot. You can reconstruct your records to show IRS, I don't have them. I'll give you a perfect example. I had a guy come into me. It was a painting contractor. I'll give you two
Hmm.
examples, really killer. Two, he's a painting contractor. They said, "Hey, I need your supplies and all this." He said, "I didn't have them." The initial agent came in and disallowed all the expenses. He had $200,000 worth of income. That's
Wait,
impossible,
so
agent.
he needed to produce the receipts, but he didn't have them.
None, none. Back of a
Okay.
truck, flew away, whatever. I've heard every, oh, the Lord's hand grabbed my receipts, or a sewer grabbed them. There was a zombie in the sewer. They took my receipts when I was parked. I just simply had them go back to the vendors. Where'd you buy your
Yeah.
paint? Where did you go ahead and buy your brushes at? And I just have them
Hmm.
get the records from there. Plus, there's a bunch of stats for businesses that they have all their normal ranges of what they have. So if I know if a person painted a house, they had to use this many gallons because it covers a square feet. So, and you know
Hmm.
how many brushes, so you can back into that income. And here's what: if I don't like what the agent's doing, I take the case to appeal. Screw them, and we'll probably win the case in appeals. I don't spend a lot of time in the local office if I don't think the agent's going our way. I send the case to appeals. Appeals don't want the cases going to tax court, and
Hmm.
usually the settlement's a lot easier. You have someone more experienced, they're more knowledgeable, they're not new, they're not trying to impress their supervisor, and you always have a lot more luck in the appeals Plus, the agent doesn't have the flashlight. The flashlight's already been done.
Right, right. And it's really interesting, Michael, because you have a unique perspective having worked in the IRS
Yes.
internally for what was it, about 10 years at least?
10 long years. Just don't say 10 years. It's 10 long years with IRS. Yes, and my cuffs were taken out, and I love helping people. I love beating the IRS. You know, there's it all depends on the agent. There's a lot of good agents with IRS, a lot of them, but there's
Hmm.
some that hold people to the letter of the law that strangles them. And those are the kind that I know lovingly how to get our way with those people. Let me put it that way. Luckily, I have built a team of former IRS agents, three of which are former appeals agents. So we know what's going to happen before the case happens, and that's the advantage that we have usually over most people.
Very interesting. So you've worked thousands of IRS audit cases. Generally speaking, how long do IRS audits normally take?
I haven't worked the audits. I'm in the collection division. I've worked probably 10,000 collection cases. I have
Oh,
her
okay, right.
manager. I have 3 or 4 people on my team that work both as revenue agents, auditors, and appellate agents, tax court liaisons. They do the
Hmm.
work. You can't know it all. I really strict to when a case comes in. I know how all the cases are going to end except for audits because we don't know what a person's records are. A mail correspondence audit can take a month. An office audit can take 6 weeks. A field agent audit can take up to 4 years, depending on how much they want to crawl around. Usually, a field agent audit is going to take 3 or 4 months. All depends on the issues, the digging, the agent, and what they're looking for. Understand this. People have to understand this. When IRS comes out on an audit, they already know what to look for. They have
Yeah.
about 5,000 national programs, 5,000 tax returns they audit just randomly. They do that to gather data. But when an IRS agent comes on, they already know what they're looking for because the diff scores that I talked about were so high. IRS just
Hmm.
goes in and targets and knows exactly what they're looking for. So, and then from there, they start the flashlight and see what else. Remember, they can go to yours, they could see a partner, they could see a spouse, they could see checks going in and out to other people that has their interest. That is just a segue into finding out what they want to do with that case.
Very interesting. Good information there. So the a new development that maybe our viewers don't know about is that it was recently announced that the IRS would no longer make unannounced visits to taxpayers.
That
So
was a bummer, big
if
bummer, because every Friday, all the agents go out in the field and go shopping. And now they have to, let me tell you, that's a game changer for an agent because you could leave the office anytime you wanted, sign out in the field anywhere
okay.
you, every Friday afternoon, all the ROs, my statutes up. We wouldn't go ahead. We'd all meet and just do whatever. We got it. We closed our cases because you got to close cases. We were good. We were fast. But now, IRS now, they don't want them going out. They don't want people. I wouldn't have got the job. If I knew I had to stay in the office, I wouldn't have got it. So now the agent has to send out a 725B letter saying, I either going to meet you somewhere if you agree, or you have to come
Hmm.
into my office. They don't want people impersonating IRS, intimidating
Yeah.
the people. But I'm going to tell you that this does not serve the IRS well because at the end of the day, if I'm with the IRS and I send you a letter and I say I want to meet you, you're going to know I'm there. You can call my office. You really, as an agent, want to get out. I'm talking now, if you're an agent, want to see what's going on. I would
Hmm.
go, you know, uh, actually, there was a couple cases I had. I talked to the agent, and the taxpayer said he didn't have any assets. He had a high fence, didn't say nothing. The agent came by his house, set up a drone, seen boats and RVs and all this stuff. So half the fun of the job is going out, interviewing the business, seeing what's in the business. That was a great, great, great part of the job. So from now on, you're going to go into the IRS office.
Yeah, I could totally see that. That's a great point that I didn't even think of. So the IRS won't uh, come to your house, your place of business unannounced. You'll receive notification in advance. But what if somebody refuses to cooperate with the IRS during an IRS audit? What happens then?
Well, let's go back. Criminal investigation can go out anytime they want. If a criminal investigator goes out, there'll be two of them. When they go out and say, I'm a CI, you got to stop the conversation, be friendly, and call someone like you or me. We'll get a hold of a criminal tax attorney. So
Hmm.
let me just, if you do not go in for a tax audit, IRS ends the audit, sets up the deficiency, and then you battle from there. IRS doesn't really care. So I will look at it. I will disallow everything on your return and boom, send it in for assessment. IRS is going to control their narrative unless you have
Hmm.
somebody good that is going to know how to fight their narrative. But if you didn't come in, I was auditing you and you said, hey, I don't like you, I'm not coming in. Okay, I take all your return, I take every deduction possible. Here's your
Hmm.
income, boom. And everybody should know this too, just as a simple side note. If you ever want to find out what IRS has on you for your income and wages, you can go into the IRS portal at irs.gov and pull up your
Hmm.
wage and income transcripts. They will have for the last 6 years, usually your banks, your 1099s and W-2s, and you can find out all the information. They use the same information that you can get as a as a taxpayer. They pull that same information. They keep information about your tax returns, your W-2s,
Yeah.
your 1099s, and I know you know all this, I'm telling your audience, and a record of account. So it's all free. Just go on the IRS portal and do that. I do want to tell people two things, just in general for compliance purposes. IRS wants two things from everybody: them to file all their tax returns and to make sure
Hmm.
they're current on their estimate payments and or federal tax deposits. If you have an IRS problem ever and you owe money or you think something's up, always make sure, always make sure you've got your returns filed and your estimate payments are up to date. I want to tell you, because I'm sure a lot of people aren't W-2 wage earners, you have more maybe a business type. I don't make monthly, quarterly estimate payments. I make monthly estimate payments. I hate to have the tax bill coming to me once a quarter. So I log into your IRS portal. You shouldn't be doing paper anymore. Everything should
Hmm.
be electronic. And I go in every month and I send my estimate payment in. It's a good practice, and then you don't have that chunk to come into. Is it recommended? I recommend it. So that's up to you and whatever you tell your clients.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good strategy. I haven't thought of it that way. But definitely make your payments online at irs.gov/payments.
Yes. Yes.
Don't bother mailing checks anymore. That.
Yeah, just so you know, during the pandemic, one of the service centers had 110 feet semi tractor trailer full of information. What I understand, there's still 750,000 1040Xs that have not been processed. So if you can do everything electronically, you got immediate confirmation immediately, and you have all that information right there. So I think paper, IRS is looking to do away with paper, and
Yeah.
e-filing is the best. You can go back 3 years on a 1040. Yeah,
Hmm.
you have a lot of people stuck in that old mode because
Yeah.
you've been doing it this way, but now the wave of the future is all going to be electronic. IRS wants everything electronic.
Yeah. Most definitely, everything's electronic, and you've got to get with the program, get up to date with technology, and
Yes,
definitely use it to your advantage.
yes. It's
Uh,
here for us.
so as far as avoiding an IRS audit, I mean, I like to tell my clients, make sure you're up to date, like you said, on your tax returns. Get them filed and on time. Make any payments that you need to make. If you can't make a payment, get on a payment plan.
Let me give you a big tax tip. Shh, don't tell a lot of people this. If you
Okay.
have an high item that IRS may look at, go ahead and attach the receipt to the back of the tax return. Because when
Okay.
IRS looks to pull the return and it's a
Mm-hmm.
high ticket item, they're going to see you have the documentation and you may not get audited by IRS. Don't tell a lot of people that, but it's a secret the IRS agents use.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I've heard it both ways. I mean, I've had some clients with high charitable contributions, and they'd receive, uh, correspondence letter audits, the following year. Uh, and in subsequent years, I would say, well, do you have that copy? Let's just
Yeah,
attach it to the tax
yes,
return because you you,
yes,
you know it's going to get kicked out. So
yes,
let's just
yes.
front run this and
Stick it
take
on the
care of it in
back of the
advance.
return. show IRS you're transparent,
Hmm.
show you have the receipt. Here's why you want to do that. You don't want IRS looking at other stuff. They're going to
Right.
look at one
Right.
stuff. They may want to do a BOGO. They may want to get other stuff. So you may shut the door, you know? Anyway.
Interesting. So the BOGOs buy one, get one.
Yeah, I buy one. I'm looking at one item. Let me see if I can find, because you don't, as an agent, you don't want to leave the audit with nothing. You know, you spent
Right.
your time on it. Let's find something. Well, don't give them
Right.
anything to find. So that's why I attach this. I just want to tell your viewing audience why we're on audit. Something really cool. So I went out to. I was with an agent. He was a friend of mine. He was an office. I was a field agent, and we went out to something like a Subway. And as you brought up, the guy didn't want to give us the records, right? I says, man, this guy's a fool. IRS has market specializations on everything. So,
Hmm.
agent, we go in, and the guy was just really rude. You know, he had a chip on his shoulder with IRS. And maybe he ran
Hmm.
over a cat, IRS audited him. I don't know. So, anyway, the agent says, okay, and he left. I'm looking at the guy. Says, why don't you bust this guy's butt? It was a simple case. I says, how? What are you going to sit in there for a week and mark off the subs and what they drank and the chips? He says, oh no, it's really easy. He says, oh, it'll take me 20 minutes to figure this out. 20 minutes? How's that? He said, I'm just going to summons the bread order and I'm going to summons the cups. I'll take 20% away for destruction value and I'll find
Hmm.
out what the average sandwich is. I'll know how much cups he bought for drinks. Here's the average price of a Coke, $2. Here's the average sandwich, $6. Here's the bread. Because I can figure this audit out in an hour. So
Yeah.
IRS
Yeah.
has these market special. Here's the same one, laundromat. What are you going to sit quarters? There's only two things that they need to have. They just need to go to the vendor who sells electric and the one who sells water, and they can look at the national statistics for averages, and boom, it's done
Yeah.
just like that. Pretty cool, huh?
And yeah, that's very cool. Love those insights. So in those examples, the agent could then just make the calculation, whatever estimate that might be, issue the assessment, and then just be done with it. And then,
Right, right. Okay, you'd say you're the Subway. Prove me wrong. Here's what I found. Here's your vendor cups.
hmm,
What do they sell there? They sell drinks and they sell bread. Right?
yeah,
The meat just happens to be in the bread. So how easy is it to do that? IRS can do that on every single industry, every industry. And let's say somebody has not filed a tax return. This is a really cool
hmm,
thing. Someone says,
yeah,
Michael, tell me how much I'm making. You know, I just
hmm,
need the rent. If I know you spend $2,000 a month rent, the average is a 3-to-1 ratio. So if your rent's 2,000, I know the rest of your costs are 4,000. So usually you're in the $6,000 range. So a person's cost of living, look, they can fool you, they can live with people. There's all sorts of scenarios there. But as a
hmm,
general play, when you tell me your rent or your mortgage, I kind of know what you have to spend. Correct?
yeah, yeah. No, it makes perfect sense.
Not rocket science. IRS has this
No.
fine tuned, fine tuned. No one is going to fool. You can always fool. Please don't get me wrong. But usually, an IRS agent, I tell everyone this: their job is to look for the stink. And the three things an agent always does: they look at their cost of living, they look at their tax return, they look at their financial, and they look at their bank statements. And they all have to have a common line to them. When you don't see the common line, you know where the stink is.
Interesting. Good information. So if someone uh, is under an audit examination and they can't afford a tax professional, maybe they're trying to do it themselves, sending in documents, talking on the phone to the IRS examiner. Um, what would you recommend as far as how they should approach the IRS examiner? Um, should they be combative? Should they be cooperative? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I don't think it is a good practice to be combative with anybody. I think
Hmm.
the agents there are trying to do their job. They have their own paperwork and documentation. I think that the person has to do the best they can with the records, but know there's reconstructive records people can give. Why people get killed in audit, They don't know how to control the narrative. They don't know
Hmm.
that they can get records from other people. They don't necessarily have to listen to the auditor because the auditor has the IRS interest back in mind. There's so many different cases and every narrative is so different that you'd have
Hmm.
to look at that narrative and say, hey, you always want to be friendly. You always want to look organized. You always want to keep your appointments on time. And then you
Hmm.
always want to say, I can get those records. What else do you need? And at the end of the day, and remember, it ain't the end of the road. It's not the 10 Commandments. These aren't written in
Right.
stone. You can still go to appeals where you'll probably win. If you don't like that, you can go still send a tax court petition, but that don't mean you're going to court. They're going to docket the case
Yeah.
and send the case back down to the appeals division. So you actually have
Hmm.
another couple layers of appeals. So even if you messed up, you can always ask for an IRS audit reconsideration. You can always ask IRS to do an offer and compromise doubt as to liability. There's other
Yeah.
avenues, as you know, that you can go and reopen the audits up.
Very interesting. You actually answered the next question I was going to ask, which was, can an audit decision be appealed, and what is that process like? So that's what Mike just answered. Thank you so much for that.
Your next
What did
question
I?
that you're asking, the answer is going to be
6 years. Yes.
6 years.
Unfiled tax returns.
Yes, yes,
So
that's the next segment. You want to do that now?
we could touch upon it real quick. So a
Sure.
common misconception is if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, Mike, I haven't filed my tax return for 10 years. I'm scared. What do I do?"
Most people are unaware that
Hmm.
IRS has a policy statement that they can look up. IRS
Hmm.
policy statement are there for situations where it's not law, but IRS comes up with a general policy that says this is what we're going to do in that situation. IRS
Hmm.
policy statement 5-133 says you only have to file the last 6 years. That's it. In some cases, I only file 3 years if it's a non-asset case. IRS just wants you back in the system. So if you listening to your CPA here, Noel,
Hmm.
and you trust him and know he knows everything, which he is as smart as anyone in the industry, you only have to file your last 6 years. That's it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
the other determination is you want to make sure if you're married, you want to file a joint return or not. And that's something you have to ask him about because he'll be able to tell you. Many times you don't want to put an innocent spouse on a tax return and have that
Hmm.
person owe debt. So, and one other thing I want to add that you can ask me anything you want. If you're going to owe back taxes, and you're going to have a debt here, you want to figure your exit strategy out at the same time. What that means is how you're going to close your case. So you want to take a financial statement and see what IRS is going to do with you once you owe the tax debt. That's very important because that determines how you're going to work the case from there forward.
Yeah. Really good information. So you only need to go back and file your last 6 years of tax returns. If somebody tells you you need to file all 10, maybe go find somebody else. But
Yes, usually, as you and I know this, most people don't. Most people will go in,
mhm,
they want the fees, they want to get them to
yeah.
10 years, and they have no idea. And I do want to tell you, if you're going to owe an IRS tax debt for filing, there's three
Hmm.
ways you're going to resolve your debt with IRS. IRS is going to look at your financial statement. They will either take a 433F financial or a
Hmm.
433A financial, as you know, and they're either going to put your case into currently non-collectible, they're going to offer
Hmm.
you a payment agreement, or they may recommend the filing of an offer in compromise. So that's the worst that can happen. And two of them really aren't bad. So believe it or not, you and I discussed this. A lot of people think they're going to be arrested, they're going to go to jail. They live with this
Hmm.
fear, they live with this anxiety. There's no need to. It's so easy to get the returns filed, get back in the system. And half these cases, IRS puts uncollectible because they can't collect the money. So if you're listening today, you ought to call Noel here and just say, hey, let me get this over with. I don't want to deal with this anxiety. And I will tell you, there's people listening. I'm going to say at least 15% of you haven't filed 3 or more return. And the process is so simple. He's a
Hmm.
type of person, he'll pull your transcripts up. He'll go ahead, and if you're missing records, he can easily, not easily, but you can reconstruct the records. So you got a good tax returns filed. Get this off your chest. There's no need dealing with this stress and trauma and drama the rest of your life.
Yeah, really good information. Thank you so much for that, Michael. And thanks for coming on my channel today and talking about IRS audits and best ways to deal with it, deep dive understanding of what's going on actually behind the scenes. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, Michael, you do have a YouTube channel and they could, and a website. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, just call me on my phone. I answer all my phone calls. I don't let salespeople take the calls. I want people to get the information from me. I don't want anyone else to answer questions that can be wrong. I have a bunch of former IRS agents, just really simple. I don't have a fancy number. It's just an old crappy number. It's a 954 328 3501. I'm not that really fancy. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can talk to my partner here. No, I just want to tell you, in our industry, there are really class people and they're really genuine people and people who give back to their community. And, they're kind of hard to find. They really
Hmm.
are, and I think that you have to find like-minded people. And I can tell you that Noel and I really think the same. For me, many of you don't know me. God does my blessing. You don't. God sends me the people he wants to send me. I can't tell you how many people that I get calls from that says they were praying about who to call and they wound up really calling me. So, you're not the one ever who blesses me. No one listening to me. This man here
Hmm.
doesn't bless me. I don't bless myself. God brings me the blessing for the people he wants me to take care of. And that's good enough for me. If he wants me to have 50 clients, he gives me 50. If he wants me to have 6, he gives me 6. I am in not control of that. All I have to do, my job is just to do good quality work. And whoever the Lord
Hmm.
decides to bring me, he brings me. That's really all that I care about. I'm older up in the years. I've realized this, and that's just the way it works.
And I appreciate that about you. And I love everything that you just said. And it completely resonates with me. I mean, I can look at you and I think to myself, he doesn't have to be doing this. He could be sitting on the beach, which is probably right outside your door, and sipping Mai Tais and pina coladas. But instead,
I'm drinking
you're
milk.
doing.
Just, I actually drink chocolate. I'm sitting here drinking chocolate. I don't even drink pina colada. I love milk. Matter of fact, yes, it's Dutch chocolate. There is no better chocolate milk, just so you know.
You and my 8-year-old would hit it off. He loves
Yes,
chocolate milk too.
that's about my mentality level after this many years. So yeah,
There you
no,
go. But
but you do the same thing. You think you got 500,000, people and hours or whatever, which really is amazing. And sometimes people just want to hear the truth, and they don't want to be sold. And you don't sell; you
hmm
just give information. If they want to
right.
call you, they'll call, and that's what you do. We do. We're very like-minded. We're like two. We're like almost if a train were to go down on two railroad tracks. We're just one side of the track, and you're the other side of the track, and boom.
And I think that's one of the core things that I think people are missing is that it's about giving.
Yep.
Give, give, give. And that's what you do. You do it very well with your YouTube channel and all the great information you put out, even to the tax professionals community. And you've got such a passion for what you do. And I really appreciate that. And Michael,
Listen,
thanks
don't
so
cut
much for
your
coming.
hair. Don't cut your hair. If you have any extra, I'm missing that part that you haven't. So I would love to get a Christmas gift. I can do a. I want to say a prayer with your audience before we leave. Is that okay to do
Please.
that?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
if you're listening, I thank you so much for this man and what he offers and what he does and the spirit and the kindness that he has to give. Um, it's tremendous that he does this and he gives it away at such a young age that it didn't take him years to do this. So I ask you all to listen, to get as much wisdom as you can, for the Lord to give you all discernment into the life's things, and to ask the Lord to give a hedge of protection around your business or your family or the thoughts or whatever that you really need to do, and to start to free yourself from the anxiety that people have, the fear and the anxiety and the things that rent space in our head just is not worth it. It's just not. So the Aaronic blessing that's found in the Bible in Numbers 6, may the Lord bless you all and keep you. May his grace and light always shine upon you. May he give you wisdom and peace in this life until you transition into the next. I pray this in your name, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit again. Have a good one, my friend. Nice talking to you.
Amen. Thank you, Michael. God bless you. We'll talk soon. Love having you because you're a straight shooter. You cut right to the chase. Your channel is really good. You're great at sharing information to the public. You're passionate and you're a true giver.
Have a good one, dude.